How about, Eddie, could we go over the handout? So committee, we'll get these documents handed out that revenue or research put together for us during the break, sorry. Yeah, and Eddie, if you would describe them, these are great, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. You have 3 documents being handed out to you right now, and they're all on white paper. With the turnaround, we didn't have time to split them out separately. And I also do want to clarify with the short turnaround, we did not put these through any sort of editing process or anything like that. So I do apologize if there's any typos or anything like that. The first of those is the bullet point kind of list of what is in the bill that you have in front of you now that was requested right at the end of the previous meeting. The one thing that, as I was going over these bullets with Amelia right before the meeting commenced, is that the threshold of 10% of registered voters within the taxing subdivision is as of January 1 of the current year. I didn't include that note. So that's the bullet point list of provisions. The second one is the current revenue neutral rate form from the Office of Accounts and Reports website. And then if you flip that over, it is my nickel's worth attempt at capturing a protest petition signature form. It's got a few paragraphs of the text kind of describing that as specified by the bill, and then what those lines might look like. Obviously, without having fully fledged bill text for this exact concept, it's not possible for me to say that this is exactly how Accounts and Reports will produce this form, but it's kind of the general substance that my understanding is what the committee was hoping to have in this form. And then the third document that you have there is some voter information, number of voter information that Eric was able to pull together during the break. It is for what we believe to be the home counties of all of the members of the committee, and then statewide totals. It's got 5 columns total there. The 2022 Secretary of State election voters at 5%, the 2024 presidential election voters at 10 and 50%, and the registered voters as of January 1 of this year at 10 and 50%. So, and then it does have a statewide total for each of those at the bottom line there. So that is, that's what we have for you. Hopefully it's useful.
So thank you, Eddie. Committee, I want to thank the Kansas Chamber of Commerce for providing lunches today. I don't think they're in the room, but much appreciated so that we can continue working. Are there any questions for Eddie on the documents that were handed out? Senator Owen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is it the intention that on the back where those blanks are would in essence be filled in from the information on the front where they exceeded the CPIU?
So that's a good question. The information on the front is designed to be the actual revenue neutral rate information, and the threshold provided for in this is a bit different threshold. And so what it specifically says, the protest in the sub bill that the protest petition form shall include is the previous year property tax and the current year proposed property tax. That is one of those I mentioned without the specific language. It's a little bit hard to say because I'm not sure if the language coming out of the committee will say, in lieu of the previous year property tax as adjusted by the CPIU Midwest that was part of Senator Klem's amendment earlier. You know, if that is the goal of the committee, I mean, you could specify that either in the bill or just by telling us what you want, I think.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, you would fill it in with the applicable information.
So committee, I'll give you a couple of minutes to look over, and the revenue neutral letter, and thank you, Eddie, for pulling that together. Are there any questions on the number of registered voters that was handed out? Senator Klemp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the registered voters is different than property taxpayers? Is that, or how does that, are these,
These are registered voters.
the 10% that's required is not registered voters today, and kind of how it's written?
No, currently, as the bill has been amended, it would require 10% of it would be the second to the last column. 10% of the registered voters in that taxing subdivision.
So that last column, the second to the last column where it's, the header is registered voters January 1st, 2026?
Yes.
That is really registered, or property taxpayers as well in that definition?
It's just registered voters that can sign the petition. That is a discussion to have another day as to who's represented in taxing authority, but not a can of worms that we have the time to open up right now. Taxation without representation is a big topic.
So where I'm off is that column doesn't really reflect what we're voting on.
The second to the last column is how the current bill reads. It is 10% of registered voters in that county. That's how many signatures it would take in order for the petition to be successful.
Okay. That was getting thrown off there. So it's just 10% of registered voters is that second to last column.
Yeah, yes. Eddie, did you want to? Yes, those are good questions. I'm glad you're asking because we need to understand. Eddie, do you mind?
Yeah, the provisions of the bill require the signers of the protest petition to be registered. Qualified electors is I believe, the statutory term, but registered voters. Just by virtue of owning property, that doesn't trigger the ability for someone to sign a protest petition, which also, includes property ownership. Sometimes it's very straightforward individuals, but sometimes entities own property. Sometimes there are numerous property owners listed on a deed and things like that. And so the notice and the mailing is associated with the property ownership and who that bill is mailed to, but the actual signing of the petition itself is limited to the registered voters in the way the bill currently reads. And so that's why we do have I did try to include some language in the signature page form to that effect. Whether that language is the best to be used for that's probably a good question for Department of Administration Counsel, as they're the ones who the bill provides to actually prepare the form. The other thing that I did want to mention is when we talk about the thresholds, this is for those counties specifically. Obviously, each taxing subdivision within those counties would have their own threshold, but this is what's able to be pulled quickly as it relates to that.
Okay.
Senator Owen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to point out, just so everybody knows, if they get their hands on this public document, the bottom right, two columns and 2 rows are incorrect. Sedgwick County doesn't have 4 million people in it, or let alone 8 million people in it. I originally thought it was transposed with the statewide numbers, but I even think that may not be correct because 10% of the roughly 500,000 citizens of Sedgwick County or Wichita. Anyway, those numbers are wrong. Just wanted to let everybody know. And I know you were in a hurry. I just wanted to point it out publicly, that's all.
No, that's, and we'll get those corrected. Yeah, that's more than the state of Kansas. So, but I understand typos. Definitely, I'm always a digital off. Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question was also on the numbers, and is statewide mean statewide average, or?
And the bottom line statewide is the statewide total at those thresholds. So the 5% Secretary of State is 50,000 would be statewide. That's an informational only item because obviously, as has been noted in some discussion, the state isn't subject to this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think if the numbers for Sedgwick are corrected, then that will make sense.
Thank you. Any other questions? Senator Peck?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. On the notice of proposed property tax increase in public hearings form on the backside, which is, of course, the revenue neutral rate, I'm curious, our property and a lot of married couples will have property listed in both individuals' names, but only get one property tax. However, we are two separate voters. My wife always cancels out my vote. No, she doesn't. But so my question would be, on this petition, I'm wondering if we need a place for multiple voters to sign.
So we had discussed, they could make, no, I'm glad. No, this was, Thursday, making a copy of the back of the revenue neutral letter and sending it in as a signed petition. But I would ask the revisers if, since it says the revenue neutral letter or a copy of may be submitted, would that be in order, or would we need that clarification?
Madam Chair, I suppose if you can, if you would, I guess at this point, these are all kind of conceptual, so, I mean, making a copy would seem like a reasonable if you want that included. I mean, there's already going to be multiple changes to the draft that was sent out to accommodate all of these different notices, or all of these different types of petitions, because the current version only anticipates one petition form. So we're going to have, there will be some language changes to accommodate a second kind of petition form. If you'd like, to include copies, I mean, that's fine.
Thank you, Amelia. When we're back working the bill, we'll entertain that motion so that we have clarification on it. Other questions on these forms? Okay. Eddie, do you want to go over the bullet one, or do you feel comfortable? Do you feel like we need to? Oh, I don't think there's, any questions on the bullet form? The differences, okay, everybody's good? Okay, I just want to make sure. Senator Peck, then, do you want to make a motion?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll make a motion what Amelia said. I'm sorry, I don't know how to word it, so.
That's fine, so that copies are allowed. I think she understands, yeah. Is there a second on the motion? It's been moved by Senator Peck, seconded by Senator Owens. Discussion on the motion. So that they can basically copy the revenue neutral form and send it in as a counted, signed as a counted petition signature. Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We're back on the bill, and I do have an amendment. Since we're talking about ease of the petition process, I was asked at a coffee this weekend by my county treasurer if they were going to be accepting petition signatures in the treasurer's office. I thought that the House bill had that, but it did not. Well, it may have, but we're going to clarify. The amendment would be that the clerk, the county treasurer, county clerk, and/or election officer would gather petitions. And the reason being is because when people go into the treasurer's office, they're paying their property taxes, so it would make it easier. They wouldn't have to make 2 stops at the courthouse. They could just, treasurer's office, sign the petition, instead of having to go treasurer's office, pay your taxes, and then sign the petition in the clerk's office. So any questions Okay, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not thinking that that would happen at the same time because you would be paying your property taxes after this is all settled, right?
True, but they might be going into the treasurer's office for other business. We're just trying to make it simple. You don't want the treasurer's office?
Well, I think it makes it less simple if you have more employees collecting different forms. You know, and where do those forms kept and who's counting them? So I do like the idea of the county clerk or the election officer, rather than put, I mean, the treasurers are already keeping track of a lot of paper. And then if there was any question that my name should be on the petition, we know where that petition should have gone. So that would be my concern.
Okay, any other discussion? I mean, if it's not the will of the committee, I don't need to make the motion. I just was trying to make it simpler, and I am full aware that this is a major burden for the clerks, and anything we can do to kind of help alleviate a little bit of that burden was some of the intent here too. But any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll move on my motion. Is there a second? It's been moved by Senator Tyson, seconded by Senator Peck. Discussion on the motion. Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I'm not sure it's simpler, and I'm not sure that if I were the county treasurer, I would feel I needed to make a copy of every petition that I transferred. So I see it as a burden rather than a simplification.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Would you like to be recorded? Senator Francisco would like to be recorded as a no. Motion passes. We're back on the bill. Committee, are there any other amendments? Seeing none, Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I do not have an amendment, and I apologize, but as it relates to allowing photocopies, I can see a homeowner getting a copy for all of their family who are old enough to vote, who are not owners. Would that be acceptable? They would be registered voters.
That would be absolutely acceptable because this is registered voters. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? If you have a large family, you could make quite a dent in that number. Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm going to just make one more stab at the bonding. So is debt already capped for cities in terms of being able to issue bonds?
We'll check with research. I'm not sure.
And Madam Chair? So I'm asking that because if that's the case, then we've already given that authority under a limit for cities to, or counties to issue bonds, and then up to a particular limit. So if it's already capped, I don't know why this would further limit that.
Eddie, do you mind?
So in 2019, our office published a memo that I don't know who authored. I didn't author it. I don't know who did. But it does indicate, and there is a statutory reference on it, that cities have a general limit on bonded indebtedness of 30% of the assessed valuation of the city, as certified by the county clerk the preceding August 25th. There are a couple of exceptions for that. Actually, maybe only one exception, which I think might have been a city that lost valuation at a specific point in time, and thereby their debt was above their valuation.
Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm saying this is something that we have already identified a specific cap on for our cities and counties. And again, that's why I would be interested in making that an exemption. Someone wants to second it, I'll make a motion.
I'm sure you could get a second. Do you want to make the motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would ask that we include the same exemptions for bonding authority and finances as in the original House bill that came over.
Is there a second on the motion? It's been moved by Senator Francisco, seconded by Senator Corson. Discussion on the motion. Senator Corson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to support this motion because I do think that we do run the risk of, if we're not exempting bonding, of hurting potentially the credit worthiness of some of our municipalities, and making the municipalities borrow at a higher interest rate, which I don't think is the intended effect, but I think that would be the practical effect if this were to be implemented. So I just think it works at cross purposes to our overall goal. So I would think that exempting bonding would be a positive change for this.
Thank you. So I'll ask, I don't know if it's revisers or research. The last lid that was repealed, did it exclude bonding?
Yes, the lid that was enacted in 2016 and repealed in 2021 included the same bond kind of debt language as was included in 2745 as passed by the House, with the only difference being the date that was referenced in it. And one comma, but yes, it did include it generally.
No, I just wanted to make sure because that lid didn't work. And that's why I wanted to clarify that. That's why it was repealed. So committee, any other discussion on the motion? Senator Corson.
Yeah, I would just make the point that this is how a lot of our cities and counties finance their infrastructure projects around the state. So this is essentially an alternative for them from raising taxes to finance those projects. So I think we would want them to, when appropriate, have the option to do bonding to pay for some of these projects rather than raise taxes to do it.
So if I may, we're not taking away their ability to bond. With that, Senator Corson.
Right. We're not taking it away. You're correct about that, but I do think we are going to be making them pay a higher interest rate. And I don't think there's a good public policy reason why we would want municipalities to pay a higher interest rate. If we could let them pay a lower interest rate, that just seems like a better public policy.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay? No. Motion fails. We're back on the bill. Committee, what are your wishes on the bill? Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think you had indicated that you wanted a motion to strip the contents of 2475 and make it a substitute bill. Is that correct? So do you want this as two separate motions or one?
Senator, you can make it as one motion. Yes, I think it would be, and we're doing this not because we made so many changes to it, but for the simplicity of writing there were a lot of changes in the House, changes in the Senate, and so it just makes it easier on the revisers and to read the legislation.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would make a motion that we strip the contents of House Bill 2745 and insert the contents of the legislation that we have put together into the bill and pass Senate substitute for House Bill 2745 and recommend it favorable for passage.
It's been moved by Senator Peck, seconded by Senator Owens. Discussion on the motion. Senator Schallenberger.
Thank you. I've tried to be helpful as we've gone through this process, and I don't want to stop the House from, or the Senate from having a chance to vote on this, but I think we're better off right now with the revenue neutral than we are with all this stuff. It seems very complicated. I know what we're trying to do, appreciate what we're trying to do, but I won't be voting for it on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. All those opposed, no? No. Motion carries. Would you like to be recorded? Senator Francisco would like to be recorded as a no vote. Committee, we'll turn our attention now to the hearing on, I have it in front of me, 2470. Thank you, Amelia.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. House Bill number 2470 provides that municipalities with a population of less than 10,000 people shall be allowed to designate the entire municipality as being within a neighborhood revitalization area under the Kansas Neighborhood Revitalization Act. The Kansas Neighborhood Revitalization Act can be found at KSA 12-17-114 through 12-17-120. And it is a program intended to authorize a rebate of all or a portion of the additional taxes that are levied by a municipality that are attributable to a qualified improvement to property. The rebate applies to the increment of the taxes resulting from the increase in the property's assessed value as a result of the revitalization. And I have provided you today some copies attached to the back of your memorandum that it's actually not too many statutes. They're fairly short, but the definitions are included. So if you'd like to see the definitions of municipality, increment, how the municipality would designate a neighborhood revitalization area, you can look at that. It is a local program that local municipalities have the option of creating this program. And it is one of those programs that it is a rebate. So the properties are still valued at fair market value. They're still assessed at their appropriate assessment rate. Taxes are paid by the property owners. And then depending on the program and the eligibility requirements and the application process that the municipality sets up, they may be eligible for a rebate of a portion of their increment. And the bill would take effect from and after publication in the statute book, and the bill did pass the House on February 12th of 2026 on a vote of 115-4. Be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Amelia. Our first conferee is Tyson Eisenhower. Tyson, are you online?
I am. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Great. Madam Chair and members of the committee, my name is Tyson Eisenhower. I serve as County Councilor for Pratt County, Kansas. And in that capacity, I speak today in support of House Bill 2470. I was going to give some background to start, but we just got good background there, so I'm not going to take up any more of your time than I need to. So Pratt County is currently developing a new neighborhood revitalization plan. The participating municipalities within Pratt County believe there's enough evidence to justify including the entire county as a neighborhood revitalization area. However, there's a problem with taking this approach. Specifically, Attorney General Opinion 9638 states that an entire municipality cannot be designated as a neighborhood revitalization area. That opinion goes on to explain that the law was intended to target blighted areas and warns that trying to include an entire municipality could lead to legal challenge. So, as an attorney, I'm not able to ignore the Attorney General's opinion. I also don't feel comfortable recommending that my county commissioners take an action that's in conflict with that opinion that then can be challenged based off the logic and conclusions in that opinion. House Bill 2470 solves this problem by providing smaller municipalities local control to legally designate the entire municipality as a neighborhood revitalization area. In solving the problem, it also provides a strong tool to encourage both residential and commercial development in the communities that need it the most. I hope the bill receives favorable consideration, and with that, I'll stop for questions.
Thank you. Any questions, committee? Seeing none, thank you, Tyson, and thank you for your flexibility. I know you were postponed from last week on the hearing.
Thank you.
Next is Cody Smith. Cody, are you online?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members, for the opportunity to speak with you in support of House Bill 2470. My name is Cody Smith, and I'm an attorney and partner at Grafton & Smith, LLC. I also serve as the city attorney and prosecutor for the city of Pratt and have almost 13 years of experience working with other municipalities in areas relevant to the topic today, including economic development, code enforcement, minimum housing standards, and dangerous structures and other public safety matters. For purposes of my testimony today, I hope to leave you with 3 key takeaways as to why this bill should receive favorable treatment from more of a practical standpoint, in addition to it resolving the legal uncertainty that Mr. Eisenhower testified on. 1, scattered deterioration. 2, administrative burden. 3, safeguards remain intact. For scattered deterioration, the reality of small town Kansas is that deterioration, which is one of the big areas the NRP addresses, it's rarely concentrated into a single isolated neighborhood, like you can often find more in your larger metropolitan cities in Kansas. These types of properties are typically scattered throughout the community, and larger cities, while they can point to those isolated areas, which is why the mapping requirement within the NRP program makes sense for those applications. It makes it difficult for smaller communities to draw these maps depicting these existing parcels in smaller communities there, which is one of the requirements set forth that we're addressing today. Essentially, it creates the need to draw specific boundaries, which turns the process into a bit of a political battleground. And this actually happened to us in Pratt as we've been working on renewing the NRP program there. A preliminary map was released whereby we gave our best effort to try to figure out some boundary lines to include the areas and the zones without encompassing the entirety of the municipality. When that map was released and some of the public viewed it, quickly led to backlash by citizens whose properties did not fall within that map. And then they're asking the question, well, why isn't my property included in that? And it essentially left staff struggling to answer their question other than, well, the Attorney General opinion says we can't include the whole municipality, so we had to leave some areas out. And safe to say they weren't happy with that answer. And fielding these types of questions consumes time and resources that really, especially smaller town staff should spend on program administration, code compliance, and other core municipal services. 2, the administrative burden. Smaller towns do not have dedicated planning departments with staff to work on these types of projects, nor do they have a geographic information systems department, the GIS system, and they don't generally have the extra funds to hire expensive mapping consultants and surveyors. So it's often city clerks, code enforcement officers, and other personnel who already wear multiple hats as it is, that are struggling to find time in their day to go through every property in town to determine if they should be included or excluded from this map. And then 3, safeguards remain intact. I'd say the elegance of this bill is that it's simple. I mean, it's just one line that fixes the problem. And with this, it does not weaken the program or invite abuse. HB 24/7, it doesn't change the substantive eligibility requirements, nor does it alter how property is appraised or assessed under Kansas law. Municipalities will still be required to adopt a revitalization plan. They have to set objective criteria for participation, and ensure that any rebates are strictly tied to actual increases in assessed valuation. So to close, in addition to resolving legal ambiguity, House Bill 2470 removes a geographic constraint that really has very little practical value for small communities, and it will allow smaller local governments to stop defending arbitrary boundary lines and instead focus on eligibility criteria, public safety, and measurable investment. So for these reasons, I respectfully request the committee's favorable consideration of House Bill 2470. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you, Cody. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you again, Cody, for your flexibility also on the hearing. Much appreciated. Are there any other proponents? Any opponents? Any neutral? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on 2470. Committee, is there any other business to be brought before us? Seeing none, I thank you for your work, especially today. Heavy lift. Thank you, committee. We're adjourned.